Hello everybody, this is Doll Dazzler and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys another doll out of my doll collection. This is Shirley Temple. Shirley Temple was made by quite a few doll companies, but Ideal was the one that had the licensing to actually make the replicated doll of her. I do believe that this particular Shirley Temple was made by Ideal, but there's a couple of things about it that makes me a little bit unsure, and it has to do with the markings. But I want to show you the doll first. So if this was in fact made by, if she was in fact made by Ideal, it would have been from 1934 to 1940. There were many different sizes made of the Shirley Temple. This doll is made completely out of composition, so she doesn't have any midsection that's cloth. From all of her head and her extremities, her arms and legs are composition. She is wearing one of the dresses. Most of the outfits that were made for the Shirley Temple dolls were replicas of the dresses that she had in her movies. So I'm not quite too sure which one this would be, but it's got several tiers of ruffles on this first part, like the outer part of the dress. And then the slip part is like a sateen, and then underneath that is the pantaloons. And these are original to the doll, even though I can't figure out which actual company made this doll. I do believe it was Ideal. And then of course her socks and shoes. Now the shoe itself is probably the vintage shoe, but the shoelace, let's see if I can find it, there we go. The shoelace itself is new, and you can tell because of how clean it is. The sock is to original. It's a little bit stained. So the shoe itself is vintage, the sock is vintage, but the tie is not. The doll hardly has any damage to it, with the exception of a few cracks here and there. It looks like whoever had this doll before tried to fix this, probably one of the worst cracks that's in this doll, right across the forehead going into the eye. It took a little bit of the eyebrow out as well, but with her hair down, it's kind of difficult to see a certain light. This light, it really does accentuate it very well. So it's something that I could consider if I found somebody to do the restoration on her, somebody that could go back and it's smooth, it just needs to be like painted. Probably somebody can do that for me. And then on this other side is another additional crack that's coming out from this side of the eye. That's all that the face has sustained, which is really good. Other than that, the eyes have yellowed quite a bit, and they've also crystallized. I call them crystallizing, where the pupil of the eye, it kind of gets cracked and loses the pupil color. So both eyes have sustained that. She's missing a couple of eyelashes on this eye here. There's a few that are missing in the middle. These are okay, but on this side they're missing a little bit. Her mouth is fine. She's got her teeth and her tongue is in there. So that's about the extent of the damage on the face. A little bit of damage, but for what I paid for the doll, it's very minimal damage for what the value could be for this doll. Looks like her hair has as much of its original set as possible, and it's the original wig. Don't know about the bow itself. Looks like it might have been added afterwards. It's a little bit clean to be from the 30s, but looks like the rest of the hair is in pretty good. It's in pretty good shape. Is that floss mohair. So for it being that type of hair, it's actually in really good condition. Going on down, there is some neck damage. On this side here, there's a little bit of the paint missing off of the composition. And then there's a little crack going through the marking, and I'll go through the markings in just a minute. There's a rather large crack going through that across here, and then onto where the arm meets the shoulder. And same thing on this one. This is a hairline crack. And then off to this side, I forgot to show you on the behind the ear, there's a couple of cracks here. But these aren't all the way through the composition. These are paint cracks. So they would probably be a little bit easier to restore. The arms, let's see if I can get it down there so you guys can see. This one does have a little bit of a crack. I'm going up the forearm. There again, it's just a paint. It's not all the way through the composition onto the hand and the thumb. So that's just basically, you know, fixing the paint. And then on the back side, there's a pretty good crack going on, but it's not deep either. So on this arm, there's some little hairline cracks down here on the bottom, and then a little bit of dirt, and just some little cracks here and there, and then some paint scuff off of the composition on her fingers. And then on the legs, I think her legs have some pretty big cracks as well. Let's see if I can get the camera aimed down there. So really all they are is just cracks through the paint. Not even crazing, it's just cracks in the paint. And on this one actually doesn't have any. This like, well, right here. Not too bad though, not too bad. That's a really short crack. So the legs are actually in better shape than the arms. Don't know about the chest. Don't think, nah, there's nothing on the chest. All right, so the condition for it being 1934, it's pretty good shape. So I would like to get it restored to fix her eyes. I think that I didn't seek out this doll. Somebody had told me that they had a Shirley Temple. They were a doll dealer, and so I did some stringing of some dolls for him, and I do know how to do a little bit of stringing, so I did some stringing of some dolls and then gave him some extra money, and he sold this Shirley Temple to me along with a couple other dolls. I don't get into the stringing necessarily a lot because I find myself being a little bit clumsy, so I don't want to ruin a doll. I'd prefer to have a person that does restoration do it, but I have done some restringing of my dolls as well. So on the back of her head she is marked Shirley Temple on the back of her head, and there you can see just a tiny bit of damage to the composition as well. Actually, it's just a paint scuff, but she has the marking Shirley Temple on her neck, and then down below is the marking also Shirley Temple, and then the size that she is, which is I think it's 25, 22. It's hard to read that. But the thing that's kind of strange is that when I'm looking up the ideal dolls for that time, and any of the ones that would resemble this type of Shirley Temple, what they would have had is the marking across the head, but it would also have said Ideal, and then this marking as well would have been arched across this way saying Shirley Temple, and then it would also have had, like, well, I don't know if it's a diamond or something like that with the word Ideal inside of that. But this one, it it says the size underneath her name, and this isn't even arched. So I don't know if this is maybe a prototype doll. I do know that they did make those, but most of those dolls don't have markings on them at all. So I'm not too sure. If anybody out there knows and is familiar with Shirley Temple and how they labeled, how Ideal marked their dolls, if this is in fact Ideal, or if they know who or which company it is that made this doll. I know that it looks very, very similar to the rest of the Ideal made Shirley Temples, but you know, Shirley Temple was made over and over and over and over and over again, and the companies that had made the Shirley Temples, they weren't allowed to call her Shirley Temple. So that's what makes me think that she is in fact a Shirley Temple, because she is marked Shirley Temple, and the only company that was that held the licensing for this doll was Ideal. So I do need a little bit of help, and if anybody out there knows anything more about this beautiful doll, she is outstanding. I love her. I love Shirley Temple, and I'm really interested. Also, too, along with this doll, the gentleman that I purchased it from also sent me a pin with Shirley Temple. I think it was a picture of Shirley Temple, and then just another Shirley Temple pin, and it would have been attached to her. And I don't know if I can find that. I'm not too sure exactly where it is at the moment from my move, but I do know that on some of the dolls from Ideal, they were sold with a pin of Shirley Temple. So all in all, I mean, she does seem to be Ideal, but I could be mistaken. So if anybody out there knows, please leave it in the comments for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.